Good evening. The regular meeting of the Richmond Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bridget, our mission statement, please.
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community.
Thank you. Our roll call, please.
Deb?
Here.
Angela? Here. I am here. Kyle?
Here.
Danielle?
Here.
Margaret?
Here.
Sherry?
Here.
Thank you all. We have a quorum.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Do I have a support?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support?
Support.
Mr. Walmsley?
Tonight, I will start with the retirements and resignations. Since our last board meeting, teacher Tiffany Meach, who you actually approved at the last meeting, has resigned. She's taken another position in another district. Mr. Wagner provided a verbal resignation. He's also taken a position in another district. Mrs. Holman, a CI teacher at the high school, has resigned. She has also taken a position in another district. Mr. Ogilvy resigned. He has also taken a position in another district. Mr. Chef Salvatore, the culinary arts teacher, has resigned. He's entering the private industry. Caitlin Walters resigned as the volleyball coach. And tonight, as you see in the updated memo in front of you, Carrie Blissett resigned as secretary. New hires, we have Brittany Hayes, who is the 5th kindergarten teacher at Lee Elementary School. Ashley Malak, I always goof up the names, I apologize. She is the new 4th grade teacher at the middle school. And Julie Nader is the English language arts teacher at the high school, and I believe
He is here.
Julie's here. So you have some appointments in the bottom. Susie Fulgram for the transportation director. She was previously the dispatch. Lori Wagner would move to dispatch. She was previously a transportation driver. And Mrs. Manguni to Lee Elementary School principal, who was formerly the dean of students. The minutes that are in your packet are corrected. Thank you, Mrs. Zuby, for bringing that to our attention as we're reviewing. So the ones you have are the corrected version. That's it.
Any other discussion?
No, other than you said our new teacher is out in the audience.
Yes.
Maybe she could stand up and everybody could see her.
Nay.
Welcome.
Welcome.
And Brian, I just wanted to ask a question too. In the paperwork about the freshman volleyball coach, there was something about someone to replace
Yes.
the coach. What's happening since
yes,
they've started?
Because this is a position as a Schedule B in the teacher's contract, because the season has already started officially, they have waived the requirement to post it, so we are appointing someone.
Okay.
And Mr. Reinhardt, I believe, has someone, I'm drawing a blank on the name, so forgive me, but he's already found someone to replace her. So,
Okay, good.
and then it will get posted at the end of the season for any future person.
Okay, and I just went to Mr. Wagner, Ms. Holman, Mr. Ogilvy, and Chef Vinny. They did great work for us here, so thank them and wish them well as they move on.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session.
Pursuant to Section 8B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, and upon the request of the students' parents, I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of conducting a hearing to consider the discipline of a student whose identity is known as Student 030821A.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to go into closed session at this time at 7:05. We're back into, we return to open session at 7:11. I need a motion to go into closed session.
Pursuant to Section 8B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act and upon the request of the students' parents, I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of conducting a hearing to consider the discipline of a student whose identity is known as student 030821-B.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are going to go back into closed session. We will return. We are returning to open session at 7:16. I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session.
Pursuant to Section 8A of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, I motion that the Board of Education go into a closed session to consider the periodic personnel evaluation of the superintendent.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll be going in closed session, and we will return. Okay, we're returning to open session at 7:43. Okay, I'll give you a minute. You ready? Okay, next item on our agenda is a bond update.
Okay, we are on track to have school open on the 13th. If you've driven by the school district in the last couple days, as many of the exterior projects are starting to wind up this past weekend, actually Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and again today, they have been unloading the trailers and moving the stuff back into the classrooms. Fire alarms were tested today. We should get our certificate of occupancy on Wednesday. As Jerry mentioned at the last meeting, the middle school cabinets are arriving on the 30th. Secretarial furniture is coming in. There are going to be some items, as you mentioned, that will be on the punch list that we will continue finishing. That's a typical process, but as far as opening school, we will be opening on the September 13th. Staff will be be able to set up classrooms the week of the 30th, so it's going to be exciting to have everybody back.
Any questions for Mr. Walmsley on the bond? Okay, we're going to go to our public comment section. Before we start it, I'm going to direct it to Mr. Walmsley. He's going to answer some of the questions from our last board meeting.
So I said that this week we will be releasing our return to learning plan. It's not required that we call it that way, but I didn't know how else to say it. But and some of the items that I'm going to talk about were questions that were asked throughout multiple public comments the last couple of weeks. So we will be offering two options for families. One is an in-person learning option, and one is an online virtual option. So I'm going to talk about the in-person learning option and our plan for the district. It's broken up, and just for the listening audience, it looks something like this. That will go out, kind of a checklist of all the different areas. It talks about before leaving from home, we are asking parents again, if your child is sick, has symptoms, has a fever, please do not send them to school. We're trying to maintain in-person learning for those families that do. Federal requirements do require us under the transportation that students and staff riding the bus must wear mask. That is for all districts, so that is the only mask requirement in the district is riding the bus. We will keep windows open on the bus as we've done in the past. It may be every other window, it may be every third, but try to create more circulation on the bus. While at school, face mask, though the CDC and Health Department strongly recommend students and staff wear face masks while in school, unless it is a mandate, face masks are not required. Students and staff that choose not to wear face masks are assuming any risk of COVID exposure. So it isn't optional. It is up to the staff and students if they want to wear masks. And if they want to, they're more than welcome. Social distancing. In a school setting, it is not practical to maintain CDC and Health Department social distancing recommendations. We will be encouraging spacing out in classrooms as much as possible. it's not going to be 6 feet. So if a parent's expecting 6 feet, it will not happen. In the lunchroom, we will space out lunch tables like we did last year, but it will not be 6 feet. Again, masks are optional. Obviously, if you're eating, you won't have a mask on if you're wearing. Contact tracing, as of right now, we will follow the contact tracing as the health department. I do have a question into the attorney regarding the legality of us and our requirements to mandate students be excluded from school through contact tracing. I'm waiting for an answer on that one, but as of right now, we will follow to the best of our ability. We're not perfect. We are not medical providers. We are not health department officials. We're educators. And our staff did last year, and I think they'll do again this year, the best they can to make that decision. And sometimes it is an on-the-spot decision that you're trying to make. Drinking fountains will be left on. We are encouraging all students and staff to bring water bottles to school and use them to refill rather than drink out of the drinking fountains. But they will be left on throughout the day. Cleaning, we are moving our custodial staff after school starts to their normal schedule, which means we have a day custodian, and we will have the building COVID aides that was part of the budget the board approved in June. They will continue cleaning and sanitizing the common areas multiple times during the day, like we did last year, doorknobs, handles with the disinfectant. After hours cleaning, one of the last things that the custodians will do was they will use the 360 machine as they did last year to disinfect classrooms and offices. The last category on the sheet is enrolling and attending Richmond, and it's regarding vaccinations. It says on here, the CDC and Health Department recommend all eligible students and staff receive the COVID-19 vaccination. However, the COVID-19 vaccination is not required to attend or enroll in Richmond Community Schools. Option 2 is online learning. We learned a lot from this last year. I think it's no secret that when we put this plan a year ago, we didn't know what we were getting into. Nobody knew. So I felt our staff did a remarkable job with the online program that they did, knowing that this is not the business that we're in as far as virtual learning. We are an in-person district. So, however, in working with the teachers union and through contract negotiations and so forth, we have adjusted some of the online learning requirements. For a teacher, it was very challenging for them to keep students on target if they were constantly moving in and out of in-person virtual learning. So going forward, you must commit to a semester at a time. That's two card marking. If you are failing the first card marking, or you are failing the third card marking, we will ask that you come back in person unless you have some medical note saying that your doctor or someone needs you to be at home and not in person. Obviously, then we will honor that. We're not going to make someone go against any medical opinions. But our goal is we want to make sure students are successful. And when we see a student that is virtual not being successful, we want to figure out how we can get them. So we will ask them to come back. There will be a form that you'll have to fill out. It's part of the pupil accounting rules. Last year, districts had a lot of flexibility and leeway in how they counted virtual students. This year, as of today, and it doesn't look like the legislators are going to do anything before school starts, we go back to the 1920 pupil accounting rules, which basically means there are certain rules and regulations we have to follow to count a student who's a virtual student. We will use Microsoft Teams and Schoology as our primary platform. We have installed the cameras back in all the classrooms, so a student who's virtual will also be, a teacher will also be teaching virtual and in-person students as we did last year. The expectation is that students are logged in and they're attending. If they are not, if the cameras are not on, because part of this is a safety and wellness check that we have to do with any student, whether in person, that's the only way we can do it with virtual students. If the cameras are not on, the absence is considered an unverified absence. It's an absent. We are encouraging everybody to actively engage and participate in the discussions and assignments that the teachers put out through the virtual. There are many teachers in our district that paired up virtual students with in-person students during the day, using Teams and chat rooms, etc. That's the expectation, is that they are participating in the learning. And finally, if there's any technical issues, we need to know about them as soon as possible. There are areas in this district that Wi-Fi is very challenging to get, and a hotspot doesn't always work. So as a parent, we need to make sure you understand that there is only so many things as a district we can do to provide that access when it's not even available in that area in some cases. We are still offering next year, we are going to be participating in the free lunch, free breakfast for every student next year. We will have a designated time for virtual students to pick up a weekly meal, food allotments like we did throughout the summer, which has been very successful. So, again, this plan is, these are kind of the big basics, or the basics on it. It is putting the choice in the parents' hands in terms of what they feel for their child. We are trying to do the best we can. You may have seen in the news, there are several districts that are starting to move to mandates of masks. I don't know where this is going to go in 2 weeks. In a week, this could be a different story that we're having a conversation. But unless the board wants to do something different, what I just explained to you, it will go out to parents tomorrow, as well as if you are choosing that virtual option, how you go about selecting it so we can get you registered by September 13th. Questions the board has?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
What happens if a in-person student gets quarantined? How will we ensure that they're going to be not losing education?
We will move the student to virtual, and that's the, I think, the benefit of the program that we adopted. It's the same teacher, it's just a different vehicle. Now, there will be a delay because we may have to coordinate getting hotspots and getting books and all that to the student. So there may be a delay that they do not have, they're not in school till we get everything switched over, but we'll follow the same process as last year. Other questions?
I had a question that kind of piggybacks off of that. When we quarantine students, what are our requirements going to be considered a student that should be quarantined?
That's the reason why I put the question to the attorney, because my conversation with him was, if I were to go to Red Robin, and I have dinner at Red Robin, and I sign their sheet of paper on the entranceway, and there's a COVID outbreak, that sheet of paper is given to the health department, and they deal with it. Red Robin doesn't call the people on that list and doesn't do that. The question I had is, why, as a school district, am I obligated to do the health department's work? Not that I don't want to be partners with it, but in working with our administrators last year, that is a lot of time commitment. There's many late hours they were there calling parents in the evening, trying to, leaving messages, playing phone tag. What I posed to the attorney, which he is looking into, is much like we do, and I don't mean to associate COVID with lice, but if there's a lice outbreak, I send a letter home to the family that says, in this class, someone has lice. Please check your child. If they have lice, please don't send them to school. But it's the parent is aware of it and then makes the decision. I would like to do a similar letter, if possible, for COVID. There's a probable case in this class, doesn't mean that there is, then let the parent make the decision whether they want to send their child. Because the reality is, I may identify it in the classroom, but I don't know where if that child came into someone in the bathroom. I don't know what they did before school, after school, on Saturday, on Sunday. I'm making a judgment call. When I say I, my team and I, because it's really the administrators making the judgment call, but it's what we dealt with last year for that situation in that room. If you look at the guidance the health department put out, it actually requires more work of administrators this year than last year, and which has got me having the conversation with the attorney to say, what are we legally obligated to do?
Can the quarantine be refused by a parent, you mean? Yeah.
According to the health department, they're taking the position under the health code, and I don't have the number in front of me, that they have the authority to have students be not reporting to school on quarantine, much like they would if they had a measles outbreak or chicken pox or some other disease. The reality is, until that is challenged in courts, that's the standard of the practice. So, and I'll just give you, for instance, one of the flow charts talks about, well, you quarantine one way if both students had masks on. You quarantine one different way if one student had a mask and they were vaccinated, and so
That was kind of my
and
question.
it is ludicrous. That's all our administrators will be doing. I will say this, and I want to make sure that the public knows this, is last year, we went into 100% virtual because we either got to a point where we didn't have enough staff to run the district, or we were getting very close. That could be a possibility this year. I mean, I don't know what our sub pool is going to be looking like, though they've got more people who are signing up for subs and the availability. I'm trying not to, and that's not my intent, but that could be something we have to consider. Much like I would have to close school for a snow day, I'd have to do it for a period of time.
Well, to elaborate on that question, though, so I know some districts are, I don't want to use the word segregating, but segregating whether the kid is vaccinated or unvaccinated, whether they're quarantined or not quarantined. Is that
Unless this
something?
board has a different opinion, my position on that is the medical condition of a student is between the student and the parent. And unless there's an educational reason that we need to know about, or a requirement by law that they has to be reported, like vaccination, the immunization
Yeah,
records.
yep.
We're not medical we're not doctors. We would gather it and stick it in a file.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's, I think that we're set.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Any other questions? Are we good as a board with this document?
With this kind of plan? And once I do have an answer from the attorney, obviously I don't want to, from a financial aspect, I don't want to be the test case, but it brings up a lot of points that, when we were on Zoom meetings and you saw behind me, there are 5, I think I have 6 4-inch binders of all the quarantine and cases. It's just an ongoing process. And our administrators did a remarkable job last year. I hats off to them because it was a trying year for them, just to maintain school opening. But what they're asking them to do now is even more than last year.
Brian, do you know if other districts are contacting their attorneys about this?
There's been a conversation at the superintendent's group trying to get a clear understanding. When you deal with attorneys, you get different law firms' opinions, and until it's actually challenged in a court, you're not going to know whether your opinion is correct or not. They're going to give you the best, what they feel is the best case to protect you as a district or the individual involved. I don't know.
Is there any other places people could go to, like legislators, or to get this started so that,
Well, all of this falls under it doesn't fall with anything with the school aid, doesn't fall with anything it's under the health codes, very similar like for measles or chickenpox that you've got to exclude. That's the codes they're using, or the avenue they're going to exclude students. So unless that changes, they're going to take the position we're required to exclude. And I believe there's a sentence in the code that says that they can, that's what I'm looking for. They can make up the administrative guidelines for that code. So if the health department says, well, these are our guidelines that support this, it's almost like you guys create the policy and then I create the administrative guidelines. Well, until someone challenges the guidelines, it falls under the policy. So it is very challenging. I mean, like I said, I would rather it be, if I know someone is positive, definitely, then that may be a different, if I'm a parent, if I know my child's been in direct contact with a positive, I may think differently, but if it's just in a classroom that they may be exposed, they may have the symptom, there's a different thought process I would think a parent would go through. They may still elect to have their child go to school, is really what we want to try to do, but it's going to be very challenging, because right now it is more restrictive for the quarantine. Contact tracing.
Well, I thank you for trying to get ahead of the game, I guess, because it is changing, and it's going to change in the next 2 weeks before school starts. That's real. So thank you for at least finding out some stuff to be ready, I guess is the right word.
I mean, you saw over the weekend, I don't know if you're, Warren Consolidated, ninth largest district in the state, is moving to all mask. Mount Clemens, I think it is. New Haven's looking at a mask or opt-out option, where parents have to sign off and opt out. there's a lot of logistics in that, but the plan that's before you, and how I got to this point, just so the board knows, is I emailed all of our union leadership, and I said, okay, I need you to answer this question from the perspective of your membership. And I sent out to all administrators who know the students and staff and the families in their building, and I asked them the question about masks, whether we should mandate it and so forth. And I asked, should we mandate it for staff members? And there was a variety of answers we got back from the membership. But ultimately, the overwhelming thought is that it's an individual's decision, and we don't know the background of that individual. And what the fear is that people aren't going to be honest. And, from the perspective of, if I know my kid's going to be quarantined, maybe I just don't say anything. We've had that last year. It was just keep it. I went to a birthday party, and many people got positive or crazy, but they didn't say anything, and we're finding out after. So that's not our role. Our role is to educate kids, and if there's something that needs to be mandated, then it needs to be either for all or for the areas where there are high risk. But that's not our decision, I believe, to make that call.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We're good with having Mr. Walmsley put that out?
This will go out tomorrow with the forms for registering for virtual learning.
Okay. I received 2 emails during the time here off, that we were off in July. Both of them were parents concerned about our social studies curriculum. I directed them to Mr. Walmsley, and I know that Mrs. Aria did answer them. At this time, any member of the public may address the board. Please state your name, and you will have 3 minutes to address the board. Are there any public comments? You can go up to the podium here if you wish to address. Is our paper up there?
I believe so.
I think, please sign your name and identify yourself when you address us, please. And I'm sorry, did I say they had 3 minutes? Okay, we have a new thing.
Amy Steyer. Dear board members, I'm addressing you tonight to make sure there is an understanding. I want to first thank you to the board members that meeting after meeting have listened and heard our voices, listened to our concerns, and even said the same concern, even though they were the same concerns over and over. I personally appreciate you and thank you, and that is doing your job, and it's very noticed, so thank you. Now, to those who have blatantly stated they are sick of seeing the same old faces, hearing our constant complaint about masks, mandates, our district of our government, let me make things clear. As long as my child lives and breathes and I see things that I do not see good for her mentally or physically, I will be like a wart on your behind. You see, the day my child came into this world, I was given the greatest gift and the biggest responsibility. And when I see my child subjected to ridiculous overreach and things that can hurt her mentally and physically, you bet your sweet butt I will be at every board meeting screaming from the rooftops, because I won't back down. I don't want you to think I will be quiet. I won't accept it just to accept it. You want us to have trust in the government? I will have trust in the government when we aren't told to stay home for Thanksgiving or Christmas so we don't endanger Grandma or Grandpa while our elected officials fly off to an inauguration. I will have trust in our government when we aren't told not to go away for spring break while elected officials visit Alabama and Florida. I won't have trust in our government when we are told to mask up and social distance and a former president has a birthday bash which is over 500 people from across the country while not masking up. I won't have trust in our government when our borders are wide open, thousands coming in daily, COVID positive, thrown into our cities all over the country without a vaccine, mind you, while our kids are being threatened with masks, quarantining, and our jobs and careers are threatened daily for taking something we are not comfortable with. I won't trust the government when the highest paid government official says he hopes masks do not cause permanent damage to our children. Hopes. That's the key word. I will not have trust in our government until they stop trying to co-parent with me and tell me what I can and can't do with my health or my child's. So no, I have zero trust for the government in a normal school year right now. So you can shut out our voices, pretend like you don't hear them. That's fine. I will not go away. I will stand up and fight for our child and all the children because that's what real parents do. That's our job. You may not like doing yours, but I'll continue to do mine. My child is asked to stay in Richmond. She is asked to see her friends, and I respect her feelings. If she gets a sniffle, will she have to stay home in quarantine? Will she be contact traced? I told her if things are normal, she can go. If mandates come down, I will be expecting a laptop immediately, and if that option isn't one, she will be done. I will not continue this ridiculous circus, and I won't entertain it anymore. In the words of Ronald Reagan, the scariest words you will ever hear is, "The government is here to help you." How's that worked out so far?
Any other public comments?
Good evening. I just want to say to the board, thank you for hearing us, and thank you for taking what we have said into consideration and making the choices you've made tonight. So, yay, you guys. Thank you to the parents who have showed up tonight to be supportive of one another. Yay for you guys. There is a concern. I had this whole letter written. I was going to address certain things. But then, clearly, you've heard us, so I put that to the side. But there is one thing I still want to address, and it is a concern of mine. You have a spot for us to come and make, where the public can come up, make a comment, you hear us out, whatnot. Thank you. We appreciate that. We're all trying to work together. I know it's not easy doing your jobs, and it's not always easy being us, but we're trying to work together, which is why it sounds to me that I have to come here tonight. And Mr. Walmsley, last meeting you had brought about that there was a parent that said something in the email that you felt was untrue. And you said, look, this really paints a bad picture for me as superintendent. And what they were saying, you said this is not true. You went to the grindstone for, you said, look, you could have really harmed me professionally, personally, whatnot. That was not okay. So I felt bad for you. I thought, oh my goodness, because that isn't right, especially when something is false. Which brings me to an individual on the board that had some conversations, minus other people, which this individual made comments about how they were tired of listening to us parents. They were tired of hearing about the government. They were pacifying us. They were just having to put up with us. That was sad. That was really sad, because quite frankly, none of you would be here if it wasn't for any of us. I gave birth. I brought my child to your school system. I voted for some of you. And had we not all done that, you wouldn't be here. I thought it was the individual's job. You were voted in. If you do not like hearing from any one of us, and I will not call the individual out, if you do not like hearing from any one of us, resign. Don't run again. Because I didn't like having to hear the fact that you had an opinion about my opinion. You are wasting this board's time. You are wasting the parents' time. You are wasting our children's time. Leave. Don't waste your peers' time.
Okay.
You're-
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up.
That's fine. Thank you for hearing me out. Might I say one thing? I'm embarrassed for that individual. Really embarrassed.
I'm sorry, can I get your name real quick?
Bethany Boozman.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else like to address the board?
Hi, my name is Colleen Lanu. I have a child that's entering 4th grade this year. I came tonight as a representative of a group of parents and guardians within the Richmond School District who are against mask, vaccine, and COVID testing mandates for our students in the coming school year. Some are represented here tonight, others you've heard from before, and yet there's others who you have not heard from at all and then who are hoping to make their voices heard through petition. So just wanted to let you know, to that end, I have emailed you all a petition this evening that shows those signatures. We have 91 signatures that represent 86 households and 182 students in our district. We circulated this for about a week and a half, and I'm confident that this still only represents a small fraction of the households in our district that are in agreement on this issue. I've already heard from some who didn't see the form and others who could not sign as it's a bit of a conflict of interest. And we also did this solely word of mouth. I know that we probably could have got some more numbers if we had advertised on the Richmond pages, but I think we also know that opening the doors to more families who are in agreement opens the doors to our opposition, and we're happy to keep them sleeping behind their masks, waiting for their booster shot. So that said, I truly do thank you, the board. I really do thank you for listening to us these last few months and for what you're doing. And honestly, coming to these board meetings, I have such respect for you and the time and energy that you put into our district and our students. So thank you so much for that. I'm happy to have received this update from Mr. Walmsley, letting us know that we are on track for a normal school year. But of course, as he said, I think everyone in this room is aware of the temperature that is changing all around us. And as we near the start of the school year, we would be naive to think that the conversation ends here. So I just want to encourage each and every one of you as representatives of our wonderful town and district to hold the line. When the state pressures you to mask our kids or mandate a vaccine with now questionable effectiveness and noteworthy side effects, I pray that you will not be swayed. Instead, I ask you to think of the 182 students represented here and the $1,583,400 that represents of our school grant funding. Or big picture, consider the effects another year of masking, virtual learning, and quarantining will have on our standardized testing. And how that will reflect on our AYP standards. So if my own child's NWEA scores are an indication, we may be unsure if these measures lower contamination or slow the spread, but we can be sure they can be directly linked to lower test scores and failing grades. God help us, and thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board?
Hi, I am Michelle Pickering. I have two students that attend Richmond schools. I have one going into first grade and another going into ninth grade. I had no idea I was actually going to come up and speak to you guys today, but there is one thing that I have not heard anybody discuss here, which I think is imperative that everybody knows. As it stands right now, no masks, no vaccines. It's the parent's choice, which is the right thing to do. However, the question is if or when something changes and what will happen. It has been brought to my attention from my family physician and also in the profession that I am, that as of August 1st, 2021, COVID testing will no longer be covered by insurance if that person is not symptomatic. So if it is required by the school, if it is required by your employer, if it is required for a sports team, that will not be covered. The average cost of a COVID test is $200. $200, if you had to do that every week for your child that's in a sport, 52 weeks, that is $10,400. I don't know anybody in this room that has $10,400 every year to drop on COVID testing because you may be sick. I don't go to the doctors if I'm not sick. I don't send my children to the doctor if we're not sick. So I don't know if I've ever had COVID. I've never had symptoms. I took care of my mother for 4 weeks. She was very, very ill. I ate after her. I drank after her. I did everything I possibly could to get the antibodies. I don't know what happened there, but I never went and got tested because I didn't feel the need. So again, I don't want us to get to a point where we are forcing parents now to have to pay $200 every time somebody in another position says, we need to test a child, when there is absolutely no symptom. That is a lot of money that is wasted and a lot of time. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening, Board. I know you've heard from me a few times. My name is Shelby Paul. My son will be going into 2nd grade this year. He is very excited. With all the information that we have been given prior to the public speaking, I want to say thank you. My son, all of his friends, including a lot of parents in this room that I am friends with, we are excited to hear that you're not going to mandate things. I think this is going to be good because the mental health last year of our children was in the tank. It was horrible. Kids going to school crying, coming home crying, I can't breathe, I can't this. I've said it a million times to you guys. The only thing I'm slightly concerned about, and hopefully we can answer this question at some point, is I can promise you, once we get all these students together, in 2 weeks, someone will end up with a runny nose. 1, we live in Michigan. 2, because we have allergies. 2, anytime you get a large group, you start sharing germs and all that stuff anyways. Doesn't mean that it is COVID, okay? They have put the symptoms of COVID to literally be every single thing that you can possibly get sick with. Okay, well, obviously us parents will do our part, not send our child to school if they are sick or have a fever or anything like that. But hopefully after those 2 weeks of school, we're not going to see new things, all because, little Johnny got a runny nose, and next thing you know, he's cool 24 hours later because some Claritin took care of it all. We hope you stick by your words, and we hope that you just continue to let us parents parent our children, do the right thing, and you do the right thing by you educators, okay? You teach our students the right things. Other than that, I do appreciate it, and hopefully we can have a great school year. And it goes off without a hitch, okay? Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll move on. Mr. Walmsley, Superintendent and Legislative Update.
I don't have a lot to say here, but I do want to thank John Moreno, if he's still here, for the City Hall for allowing us to use the City Council chambers. Our September 13th board meeting, which is the first day of school, we will be back in the Media Center at the high school. So thank them, thank Teresa and Al Maniaci for their use when we were at the hall, and it's been a challenge, but we're going to be coming back home real soon. I don't normally respond to public comment, but the lady who talked about testing, I don't remember where you sat. We aren't mandating. We don't require, if it's something that we have to mandate or we are required to do, we are obligated to pay for it as a district. So the testing that was done last year was provided to the districts through a process through the MISD for athletes. And that came out through not only the health department, also the MHSA. And the challenge we face is for our students that are very good athletically and have a chance to open doors for scholarship. I don't want to risk not following it because they could close doors to them and not get scholarships. So with that said, nothing has come out right now. There's no restrictions on athletics. There is no mandate for testing like they did last year. We are not planning on doing any of that this year. I have no intention to doing that. If it does become a mandate, then I will be having a conversation with the board, figure out how do we operate that in this way. But just to clarify that point. Other than that, there's not much going on legislatively, which is a good thing. Sometimes when they don't do work, it helps all of us, so.
Thank you. Items from the board. I'll start with Ms. Sherry.
I have nothing. Thank
Margaret?
No, just want to thank Brian for the tour of the buildings and seeing everything, getting questions from people out in the community and be able to say that I was in the buildings and see what's going on. Appreciate it.
I'll second that. I did get a tour too, so thank you.
I'll third it. I got a tour too, and wait till you guys see it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is.
Bridget?
I'm all set, thank you.
Kyle?
I'll fifth it. I got a tour. And if you've been in the buildings in the past and go in this fall, you'll be very happy.
Danielle?
I'm good.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, the only thing that I have is, we had an issue with a board member back in the spring about an email. Just want to let you know that we did handle it as a board, and we did in a closed session, and we also had some training received. So I just wanted to let the community know we took care of it. Also, a reminder that on Thursday of this week, August 22nd, at 6 p.m., we will be having the 26th, thank you. That's what I had down. The 26th, we will be having the rededication of our football field and the naming of our stadium and our football field. So if you'd like to come out and help us, I guess, start one of our projects that we finished, and it looks really good, so it should be a good little ceremony. Otherwise, I have nothing else. Okay, moving on.
Just to add to that, it is our first home football game with no restrictions, like we did last year, so please come out.
Okay, we're going to start with our action items. I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the 2021-22 Student Parent Code of Conduct.
A motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the amendments to the 2021-22 Student Parent Handbook as presented in the attached documentation.
Do I have support?
Support.
Any discussion?
Yes, I actually have a discussion. I'm not sure if you noticed, Superintendent Wamsley, but the names on the top of the student parent handbook for the board members has a couple
Oh, yeah. I do see
old
that.
board members on there rather than some of the new ones. It did on the, on our online board packet. I did not look at this one.
I'll get Mrs. Aaron, I will get with that and correct it. My apologies.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the fiscal year 2021-22 budget amendment number 1.
Motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve FY 2022 budget amendment number 1 presented at the August 9th, 2021 Board of Education meeting and outlined in the attached documentation.
Support.
Any discussion?
Just a point of reference, from the budget, you don't have the line items on that budget that you requested the last one. It does have us using 19,000 from our fund balance, but some of these numbers are estimates. We don't know, like, the impact of the pay to participate change, et cetera. And I know, Kyle, you had asked for that list. We are compiling that to give you an idea how close we are with that budget, but
Thank you.
This does not concern me at this point. I can say as of today, we have more kindergartners registered than we had graduating seniors, and that hasn't happened in this district in a long time.
Good. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'm looking for a motion regarding a student discipline hearing.
A motion that following a closed session student discipline hearing, the board votes to reinstate student 030821A, consistent with the attached resolution.
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion for another student discipline hearing.
I motion that following a closed session student discipline hearing, the board votes to reinstate student 030821-B, consistent with the attached resolution.
Support.
Any discussion?
Just to clarify, the consistent with the attached resolution is the original resolution and the letter that they've met the requirements that you guys put forth, just as a clarification.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. As there is no other business, the board will adjourn at 8:27.